Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Could I ask you to all raise a hand if you think today is Friday? One hand. Great. Can I ask you all to raise your keep your hand up? Can I ask you to raise your other hand if you're really looking forward to the weekend? Yeah. And then can you wave your hands at me if you really want to get off this seat and out for a drink? Perfect. Keep waving. Keep waving. Keep waving. Brilliant. Brilliant. You're doing really well. Excellent. Brilliant. Got you all. Thank you. That woke you all up. Brilliant. So most of you will perhaps already know me. My name's Matt Cameron, and I'm the CEO of LGBT Great, but also a board member of the Diversity Project. And I've been involved with the Diversity Project now for I think coming up 7 years, so I think quite a while. And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about some of the insights from the 2023 goals and progress tool. And I'm going to give you a snippet of some of the data today. And there's going to be a fuller sort of reporting deck available for you all to take a look at for next week. But the tool is, I think, really important for the Diversity Project because it enables you all to see where we are against our progress towards those 5-year goals. It enables us to see what's working, hashtag. But it also enables us to identify those places where more focus is needed. But it's really important as we all come together that we think about what is it that's working, what is it that's making a difference. And one of the key messages for today is that what we really need to do is to find out what is working and do more of it. And this is the big theme for today, of course, with the hashtag what works. Just very quickly, I want to sort of really recap on exactly the same messaging as we gave last year. But the tool is all about progress. It's about understanding the impact that all of your work streams and the work that we're doing is having across the project. But it's also enabling us to set the strategy for the Diversity Project. And there's loads of great data in here for a broad range of work streams this year, a much broader range of work stream, which we hope is going to be really influential in helping us to understand where the focus needs to be. So yes, it's about highlighting progress towards the 5-year goals. It's about being joined up in our approach across the work streams and looking at where intersectionality can really play a role. It's about highlighting the progress that we've made and spotlighting the great work taking place, role modelling, a favourite theme of mine. But it's also about working collaboratively and connecting the dots between everything that is happening across the project. Now, this year, more members completed the tool than last year, which is brilliant, and it's really great to see more and more members engaging on the tool across the year. I do want to say a special thank you to Alex on my team, our head of advisory on the LGBT Great team, for doing all of the reporting. I get to stand here and present it, which is the nice part, but Alex, you did a great job putting this together, so thank you. And also to Jenny as well, who did a brilliant job in getting you all to complete it, which was no easy feat. And Adriana as well for helping with the reporting and finalising the shorter presentation today. But what is clear is that the Diversity Project is definitely strength in numbers. And together, definitely 2 brains are better than 1. But we do have a really, really exciting critical mass now with the ability to influence right across the industry. And the Diversity Project is not just about big firms that have got loads of budgets for diversity and inclusion initiatives, but it's also about the smaller organisations as well. And there's been a real sort of focus this year on more and more small firms joining the Diversity Project. And as well, groups now forming to look at specific issues in the context of smaller firms as well. Also great to see us starting to attract more breadth across the whole industry. A broad church approach, not just asset and investment managers, but we're attracting asset owners, investment consultants, and it's great to see the membership really thrive. So overall, 12 more members reported this year than last year. We did actually have 85 that reported, but 2 firms submitted the data late, unfortunately, and we didn't want to do all the reporting again. So really, really great to see, like I say, increased momentum overall. Now, the first thing that we wanted to share with you today is a snippet. It's a sense of what diversity inclusion data are our members collecting in the main. And you won't be surprised to see that these 2 came out on top. Many of you might have read the Investment Association's report that came out, I think it was yesterday, which also concluded the same similar sort of data points to us. Followed by sexual orientation, which was great, and I guess as a leader of an LGBTQ organisation, this was really promising. Gender identity less so, but that's another conversation. Also seeing some really good progress around disability, which is terrific to see. One of the areas that we really need to look at is social mobility. So definitely the area sort of falling short. And there's a real sort of advance this year in terms of the other diversity dimensions that are also being captured across diversity project members as well. Not just looking around particular sort of diversity dimensions, but also around inclusion dimensions also. But social mobility is the area of data collection that is falling short. And again, this came out of the Investment Association's findings in their report that they launched yesterday. So there's a lot of work that we need to do there and a lot of focus that we need to put on how we turn that around for next year. Now, I mentioned a few moments ago that this year we'd encapsulated a broader set of questions into the framework, into the survey. And this was suggestions from members, so very much led by members, designed by members, down to the detail of the questions. But this year we have got new areas that we have reported on. So looking at how many of our members are disability confident, looking at the percentage of organisations that are focusing on returner programmes. This is really interesting. So we have 26% of organisations saying we want to do more on this in the next 12 months. Now that tells us something. That tells us that we need to support more members to adopt returner programmes and think about putting more resources into this space, for example. LGBTQ, more organisations completing benchmarking exercises, trying to understand their organisational maturity when it comes to LGBTQ issues. Flexible working. Now, we talked a little bit about this earlier, and one of the really interesting points here is that 59% of firms are mandating when employees need to be in the office. So there's a real risk here of us sort of lapsing back to the pre-COVID times, but really something that we need to look at. And again, focus on caring responsibilities, families, menopause. More than 50% of firms aren't currently doing anything with regards to the sort of menopause agenda. So again, we need to think about how we can build momentum and more connectivity and engagement on this issue as we get into next year. Now, if we take a quick look at the first diversity dimension that has a collection of goals collected to it, and of course this is social mobility. And the 3 goals, just to remind everybody, you can see here on the screen. But take a look at these data points with me. More firms this year were adopted the social mobility goals, which we see as a really positive insight. However, 49% of firms have not yet committed to any of the goals yet. So again, more focus around adoption of the goals for next year. Proactive action being taken. A real big increase in the number of actions that organisations are taking when it comes to social mobility, ED&I. And what was really interesting to see is that 46 organisations have added social mobility to their ED&I agendas. So the work that the Diversity Project is doing, as well as all the other efforts of members in other regards, is really starting to make an impact. Data and disclosure. This is where we get a bit of a mixed picture. We mentioned this a few moments ago, but the diversity data collection around social mobility, the picture is pretty bleak. There is more that we need to do around that. A lot of the barriers that we tend to see and that we're hearing from firms in terms of some of the comments that were added was the ability of systems to actually enable you to ask the questions. Not a lack of clarity around what questions should we be asking. So one of the things that we want to do this year is to make guidance around these elements super clear. So the picture was, I guess, a mixed bag. You can see here generally sort of what the main action points that firms have been involved in. I think it's fair to say that adding it to the ED&I agenda is a really good place to start. We've continued to see a huge sort of focus on engagement in early careers and talent attraction programmes. And this was a similar theme from 2022 as one of the most, the most common actions that organisations are taking. But I think definitely some positives, 1.9 actions on average being taken in 2022, increasing to 4.8 actions for this year. So I do see that as very positive. I'm going to show you a quick bit of data here, just to give you a bit of a picture in terms of hiring activity that took place last year. Again, all of this information is available in the full report and in a lot more detail. But it really does show the breadth of the programmes that you are all working with. And certainly Investment 2020 coming out there is probably the most engaged programme, followed by others and Upreach as well. But really interesting to see what you're all doing and to give you that insight of actually what is taking place and what is working. A little bit of an insight here for you that I really liked. So we talked about the diversity in data collection being a challenge in the industry. This was a really good sort of case study. So we had one firm actually say we've done a separate exercise this year to our normal HR survey. We're actually being really deliberate and really intentional about how we're going to improve our social mobility diversity data collection. And this is sponsored by the ExCo and by the board. And this really stood out to me as quite a sort of potent example, really, of what we can do when we put our minds to it. Let's move on to race and ethnicity, because I've got 4 minutes and 56 seconds left. The race and ethnicity goal, 90% data disclosure across all members. There is a new focus now on a new initiative called Powerhouse, which is going to be connecting 50 folks in the industry to 50 senior leaders. And this is just the start of the programme. So I think there's definitely got to be some formation of a mini goal around this, I think, given it's so number sort of related. But again, we've seen more firms engage and adopt the goals. I think there's a fairly sort of consistent theme here. The number of firms not committed to any goal has gone down. 9%, only 9% of firms say we're not going to commit to any goal. Last year, this was 36%. So we have seen a sort of a significant improvement there, but still 30% of members not signed up to any of the goals just yet. Again, a real focus on more actions around race and ethnicity. So from 6.4 to 8.9. We're seeing an influx as well of employee initiatives coming from the grassroots, which was really, really interesting to see. So not just sort of senior folks leading these programs and being visible, but the junior folks now are feeling more confident to get involved. And I do believe that programs like the Diversity Project and others are really fueling that and giving people the confidence to stand up and be counted, but also to stand up and to help lead. Data and disclosure. So again, we've seen definitely some progress this year in terms of this, and a lot of firms really focusing on how they can capture the data on their systems. There was some really interesting individual sort of points that came through as well in more of the quantitative feedback. Again, those are in the report. And it's fair to say that this year there's been more focus than there was last year on engaging with external partnerships, social impact organisations that can help in this area. What you can see here on the screen is all of the things that you've been up to in terms of tackling race and ethnicity and creating more inclusion in your workplaces. And same as last year, combating racism, action against that is the number one action for organisations. This was the same as last year. I think what we also saw, a much bigger focus here around, I mentioned before, people from all levels within organisations getting involved. Awareness training, not just for leaders, but for employees further down sort of the food chain, so to speak, and a real focus again around partnerships. But it is promising to see 6.4 for 2022 and 8.9 for 2023. So it does give me confidence that what you're all doing is working. A little bit of insight for you here. So talking about how do we get more senior leaders who are from underrepresented Black ethnic minority backgrounds. And again, there was a really interesting piece of insight that came from some of the quantitative that talked about a deliberate programme within an organisation to do this, and about how that's actually helped them shift the dial considerably, which was, again, really, really impressive to see. And finally, gender. So gender's actually, for a change, one of the areas of diversity I've got least to say about, because the results remain pretty steady from last year in that it was already a very highly engaged area of diversity and inclusion focus for organisations last year. Still 28% of organisations not quite committed to a goal, but we are sort of quite forgiving in that a lot of new members have joined in the last 6 months. A number of you are small organisations as well, so you're still working through that process on your I&D strategy. 5.7 to 9.2 actions on average being taken across organisations. And again, really interesting to see the focus on looking at language and gender neutral language when it comes to gender policies within your organisations. This was fairly silent last year when we looked at the reporting. So again, more focus around intersectionality really starting to sort of play out here. Diversity and data disclosure, really interesting. So yeah, quite interesting here. So 85% of organisations are doing gender pay gap, but only 63% of organisations are reporting that data. So there's a little bit of a missed opportunity there, I think, when we think about transparency and how we build trust with organisations. Finally, I just want to give you a bit of insight here on the sort of the last goal. So 40.3% identified as female. This is entry level and emergent talent coming into the industry, but only 0.3 trans and 0.01 non-binary. But I do think there we need to be careful with that data, because we know a lot of organisations just aren't set up to collect gender identity data. So again, more focus on there, and those numbers we do need to take maybe with a little bit of a pinch of salt, if I can say that. Finally, again, not got a lot to say about this either. 85% are sort of doing gender pay gap, only 63% are reporting against that data. We have seen a little sort of move down in terms of the salary pay gap, and a 10% reduction in, oh, my slides aren't working, 10% reduction in the bonus pay gap. The slides have not quite come out how we expected there, so take it from me, that's what it is. But there is some more, again, more detailed information around that, you know, in sort of the full pack. And again, as with the other diversity dimensions, these are the actions that organisations have been taking. I think it's really interesting that gender pay gap is kind of at the top, and I do believe that what is driving that is the Women in Finance Charter and the reporting requirements that go hand in hand with that, which shows the importance of regulating ED&I as a critical regulatory issue. It focuses hearts and minds. So we're big supporters of you know, what the FCA are sort of setting out and the PRA are setting out, albeit with a few tweaks. So you can see here 5.7 for 2022, 9.2 for 2023. So all in all, really, really positive. Want to leave you with a little bit of an insight here. So this is one organisation that again really stood out to me, talking about the transparency that they've been holding themselves accountable to with the gender pay gap reporting, and the success that it's made over a consecutive 5 years since they started doing that. And that really did sort of stand out to me as a really great shining light of what works within organisations. So next steps, and time is definitely up now. So please do continue to engage with the tool. You will be able to download the full reporting deck next week. Share it internally, use it as a sort of a stepping stone to have inclusion and change conversations within your organisation. And please do feedback to Jenny and Adriana of the Diversity Project. You're also welcome to get in touch with me as well. And we will, of course, be doing our sort of annual sort of member review to get any input that you'd like to see into the tool for next year. And I'm going to leave you with the message for my session. You know, find out what works and do more of that. Thank you.